Thank you.
Okay, if there's an error on placement from establishment, who is held liable? If an error is corrected, is committed, should we continue in that error? If we make an error, we take responsibility, and we're humble enough to say we are sorry. We will do the right thing. Our online participants, I hope they're listening. Okay. Have I answered the question? Countless times. There are people that apply for the...
Okay, now that we've satisfied online participants, the floor is open for your questions. Anywhere you need clarification on, or you want to make an observation, or ask the direct question, please. We're not going to take more than 3 for time. Okay, I have one hand, I have another hand, and... Okay, please, be brief, and then we'll try as much as possible to be brief.
Good afternoon, my name is Victor. I do clarification at the point of recruitment, somebody applied as a graduate assistant, and after 1 month, let's assume 3 months, 6 months at the candidate might do, the person presents another, maybe master's, and the person will complete it.
Yes. What's the position of a graduate assistant?
Why I'm asking this question is that I know some of my colleagues who were given appointment as junior staff in the register.
Victor, I know where you're going to. Victor, just hold on there. Just don't sit yet. I know where you're heading to. We're talking about academic staff. As staff of the registry, do they upgrade us based on our qualification?
Okay, sorry, Mr. Ademuko's hand was off.
I want to retrieve my question because my question is in line with what this guy has to say. I have similar cases where I have additional qualification and they did not receive permission. And a number of them have stopped. So with this question, I'm not clear that most of these people won't give it to the academic staff.
Let me correct an impression. Please, let me correct an impression. You know, if I got you correctly, you're speaking from experience from your immediate unit, isn't it? You know, it's I do not want us to begin to draw lines that the privileges are enjoyed by academic staff, so that we will carry out our jobs with satisfaction. You know, we are supposed to obtain permission to go on training. A staff who does not obtain permission to go on training as an establishment person, what is the definition of that, Mr. Abimiku? Okay, we don't have the power to say illegal. It's an act of misconduct. It's not misconduct. So, if we so many have those certificates. They have obtained them without permission. And they can't bring. And you know that there are people also that have lost their job as a result of that. They presented. And they were warned, they were cautioned. But they still persisted. And it unfortunately, it ended the way it ended, that the appointment had to go. It's an unfortunate situation. So for staff of the registry, we're supposed to be custodians of the law. We're supposed to help guide them in implementation. So we should be seen to be doing the right thing. Those that have their permissions, if they bring their cases, but I hope you know that in the registry we don't have upgrading. Do we have upgrading? About registry, senior and junior, do we have upgrading? So a lot. So a number of people were employed as junior staff. They have masters. Unfortunately, they accepted that appointment with the hope that when they come, they can be upgraded. It's not done. It's not done. Once you have accepted, if you had any issue, you would have at that point, at the point of acceptance, declined. But as long as you have accepted, the legal implication is that you will remain. Gladly, we know that you have a master's if you inform us. But unfortunately, we can't take you. You're a level 3 officer. Then suddenly you have a master's. You have presented the master's. You want us to upgrade you to level 9. Is it possible? For the staff, all staff of registry, there's no upgrading. We can regrade you. I said regrade if we didn't place you appropriately, but we do not upgrade. So we have our own privileges, Mr. Abimiku. Okay? Next, please.
Okay, we have another question from online participants.
We have another question from somebody viewing online. It reads, what is the right placement for a retired professor engaged on contract?
When I was talking about contract appointment, I didn't talk about their placement. And I hope he's listening. Our online participants, I hope you're listening. If an officer comes back to be engaged on contract, based on the operational rule, you're supposed to step him one rank lower than where he was. He was a professor. He retains his position as a professor. If we're engaging him, we engage him as a reader. Yes, for us it's reader. In other clients they call it associate prof. So you will have to step down by 1 rank. And it's applicable to all other people who are coming in on contract appointment. As a senior deputy registrar, for example, if you're coming in, you retired as a senior deputy registrar, if you're going to be re-engaged on contract, you'll be given the position of a deputy registrar. Have I answered the question?
Sorry. If I get you correctly, if a teaching staff goes ahead to obtain a certificate or present the certificate during appraisal without permission, do we consider it?
That was the point I was trying to make with Abimiku. Charity, they say, begins at home. We have started with ourselves. So where will you not apply it? If a teaching staff goes on study leave without permission, he has done it contrary to the regulations. We cannot recognize
I've
it.
actually seen one who was going on this training and was still conducting his schedule in the department.
He has not obtained permission.
Yes.
Have we recognized it?
No.
Have we?
No.
If we have recognized it, tell us so that we go and correct it. That's a serious one. But even if he's a teaching staff and he needs to go to school, we have a training unit here. And the vice chancellor will either approve or not approve. So if he has gone to school without permission, if you know him, advise him. If he has completed and we have recognized it, please draw our attention to it.
What is the difference between him and the person that they are permission?
Permission. It's permission, man.
They said if somebody presents a certificate after 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, as the case might be.
Well, see, in the university, when he obtained that permission, when he obtained the qualification, he acquired the certificate prior to his employment.
So why didn't he present it at the point of Please, I don't want to get to
Yes, please allow him. Let me answer your question. You know, I said there are instances. I'll give you 2 instances. There are instances wherein I must have applied for the position of graduate assistant. Remember that applications are compiled and kept. They are kept in review. So at the time of engagement, we will not visit you. We will work with what we have and give you the position of graduate assistant, devoid of the fact whether you have obtained a higher qualification or not. We are not aware of that. By the time there are 2 instances where, the Vice Chancellor, the position of graduate assistant is exclusively the domain of the Vice Chancellor. Are you aware of that? Are you? Okay. The position of graduate assistant is in the office of the Vice Chancellor. He can decide you have a 2-1, he will give you the position of a graduate assistant. Do you get it? So perhaps the position where the Vice Chancellor, that may not be an exclusive case, by the way. The Vice Chancellor has the opportunity to employ a graduate assistant. And he has been given the employment. He has gained entrance into the system through training. Are you getting it? So we can upgrade. It's a plus to the system. So that one that is on study leave without permission, go and advise him. Okay?
Okay. If an administrative officer on Contis 9 has a master's degree and converts to lecturing, which level will he be placed?
It's a totally different.
Hello? Did we hear that question?
Yes.
If we are familiar with our extant rules, the placement position with somebody with a master's is what? He's assistant lecturer. So we are looking at the qualification now, not your experience. So it's assistant lecturer. Except if that person is in a professional department. And that professional is still being defined. Those 5-year courses, if you have a first degree, your position is not a graduate assistant. Your placement is not a graduate assistant. Are we aware of that? You're placed as what? Assistant lecturer in training. Assistant lecturer in training. That's your position if you're in a 5-year program. So if we have an administrator that has gone through a 5-year program and he wants to convert to the lecturing cadre, he has a master's, he will gain his lecturer too. With a master's in those professional departments is a lecturer too. With your first degree is assistant lecturer in training.
Okay, we have another question. What are conditions and regulations for sabbatical leave for non-teaching staff? Emphasis on administrative officers.
Do we know the definition of sabbatical leave? Please, staff training, define sabbatical.
Sabbatical leave is actually the 1-year leave you take as either academic or non-academic to gain experience outside here. Usually to qualify for that, you would have been on ground for an unbroken period of 6 years. Thank you. Then the rank also matters.
Yeah.
From senior lecturer for non-academic, it is non-teaching, it is level 13.
Precisely. That's everything about sabbatical. So if you are on level 13, and you have been on ground for an unbroken period of 6 years, you qualify. Please, let's enjoy it, oh. Let's enjoy it. It's our right. If it's listed among privileges, but if you look at it in another dimension, it is your right to go on that leave, except get to level 13 so that you can go.
Yes, ma'am. In addition to that, when one comes back, how long does it take him to go for another
Unbroken period of 6 years. Yes, it has to be an unbroken period of 6 years. So if you want to enjoy sabbatical like 3 times, 4 times before your retirement, start early.
Thank you. Sorry if we're unable to take all the questions. We will try as much as possible to reach out to you at the end of the whole training. Please. We're going to take the last one before we take a comment from one of our attendees. On the issue of leave of absence, is it obtainable for registry staff and for how long?
Please, can somebody define what leave of absence is? It's a type of leave. Sorry, before that definition, I hope you know that you can't take leave upon leave. Someone that is on study leave cannot take annual leave. If you're on study leave, you cannot take casual leave. So you can't take leave upon leave. Yeah. Can somebody help us with the definition of leave of absence? Leave of absence. In the layman's language. Okay.
No. You are leave of absence away from your
leave of absence is when an employee wants to take an employment elsewhere, a paid employment that will need him to leave the service for a certain period of time. He can take leave of absence.
Kenneth, you have something to add to that? Saratu is not here. She would have given us more. You don't? He has defined it. Okay, Jimwan.
As he mentioned, leave of absence is the period that the staff takes to leave the system while still retaining his appointment with the university. To assume duty maybe on appointment as special aid, appointed position, or to take up humanitarian services.
He mentioned humanitarian, and then it can be a paid appointment, it can be humanitarian. Do you have something to add?
For which period the university will not be?
Exactly. And that period, you're not, the only period that you leave the system that you still enjoy is sabbatical. Sabbatical, you enjoy double salaries now. You enjoy 2 salaries. That's why that rest is very good. You just gain the experience and you gain the money as well. At least we have answered the first part of the question. The second part is if we are entitled to leave of absence. Absolutely. I am a product of it now. I stand here as a living testimony. I got an appointment in Khartoum for a period of 5 years, and I asked for leave of absence. I was granted because there's an indication to that, and I was granted 5 years. And if I had returned that I needed an extension, I will be given the extension if I have a justifiable reason. I want to also add that recently, Jimon, you will correct me if I am wrong. Recently, I realized that we have probably not treated that leave of absence correctly, because you can be tired of the University of Jos. You want to just rest. You don't want to resign your appointment. Though you can take leave of absence. True or false?
True.
You can take leave of absence. Yes. Well, for a period, then you can now come back.
Without the money.
Jimoy, am I correct?
Yes, ma.
You can take leave of absence,
I know someone who had
take
done
care
that.
of you want to be away. When you have freshened up very well, then you can come back. However,
We don't pay you.
that leave of absence can be truncated. The period of leave of absence, the period granted to you on leave of absence can be truncated. How? If I had an appointment as a commissioner with the Plateau State government, for example, and I asked for 2 years. University has granted me permission. They have granted me the leave to go on leave of absence. And along the line, I realized that I am no longer interested.
I saw the thing
I hope you know that you're still a staff of the university.
I saw that, but I didn't bother.
You can terminate it. Yes. You can terminate that leave of absence. You terminate it with the Plateau State government, then you come back to the University of Jos. Then you will write, because the Vice Chancellor had granted approval, you will write. You must have reported to your unit that you have returned. Then you will write a letter to the Vice Chancellor. You will write a letter. The Vice Chancellor is the approving authority because the advice will come from the registry. You will write a letter requesting for attaching your termination, the approval for that termination from Plateau State government. Request to assume duty in the university. You are appealing, you are requesting to assume duty. Then we will do our nitty-gritties. It will go to the Vice Chancellor. If he grants the approval, you are back. The only problem you may have is IPPIS.
We have done well. We have been sitting down for so long. I just want to comment on something we had discussed and passed. The issue of staff training without permission. And then the staff that we're talking about, junior staff having master's degrees. To the best I can remember, when people apply into this university, at the time I came in, if you have a higher degree, we'll have no reason allowing you to take interview for a lower degree. So if you have a staff that has a higher qualification, it means they concealed that information. So that we don't go out here thinking that registry is being unfair and all that. They have concealed that information, and if you conceal the information from the point of entry, you have to keep it concealed. So please, let's note that. And then the differences in our condition of service accounts for the reason why you will see somebody in the teaching line allowed to study and study and study while you are being controlled. Their appointment says teaching, research, and community service. Research is this study that we're talking about. So at any point they apply to go for study, nobody checks whether somebody is on ground or not. They are allowed to go for study. But for us, non-teaching, we have to check if there's somebody to cover your duty. Will it be at, adverse to the running of our offices? So that's why you see that we have to check. Okay, you have to be on ground for 5 years, you have to do this, you have to do that. So we need to know that our conditions for employment differ. And please, enjoy our work. Our work is very noble.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Daffas.
Thank you, ma'am. Please, my question is this. Can you go for sabbatical leave, come back and apply for leave of absence?
Okay.
Concurrently.
The question
No, not
is
concurrently. When you come back.
when you return,
Yes, when you return.
then you ask for leave of absence.
And what happens to, sorry man, what happens to your promotion when you go for leave of absence?
Beautiful. That's a very good one. I didn't mention that part. our condition is very clear on that. Let me start on it. Our condition says the period for leave of absence is not counted for promotion. So if you go on leave of absence, your promotion stopped from where you left it. When you return, then we can revisit it. Meanwhile, you ask the question, is it true that we fill bond forms? When we come back on sabbatical, you fill bond forms.
She's connecting to one of her.
What are the conditions?
After the break, she'll join.
Before
The YouTube. She doesn't have Facebook.
Before we give you your award letter, you have to fill the bond form. And the bond period is for 1 year. So you will not just return from sabbatical and want to go on leave of absence. You need to be on ground for at least 1 year before you proceed.
By the way, again, you know there are also exceptions. You know there are times that there are some certain executive fiat that comes. I hope we know that. Am I speaking Greek?
No.
I can come back on sabbatical today and say that, okay, I have got an appointment with the state government. It's a national service that you're going to render. The Vice Chancellor is the one that has the power to grant that executive fiat for that bond period of 1 year. Otherwise, there's a bond period that we must serve. So for those of us who are planning to go on sabbatical, when you come back, you will give us the 1 year. So if you want to go on appointment as an ambassador in Ukraine,
Okay, ma'am, please, sorry, we are pressed for time. I hope you understand.
the last one.
Come on,
I have very little understanding of what we call notional promotion. But what is the relationship now between leave of absence and notional promotion? That's in the case of your promotion not being considered when you are away on leave of absence.
Notional promotion is a kind of is a form of enhancement without monetary backing. Did I convey that?
No.
You gain some kind of enhancement without monetary backing for it notionally. If just like lateral conversion, if you're going, is that there has to be parity. Lateral conversion, if I am on level 1 here, I am moving to that next level, it has to be, the salary has to be the same. That is lateral, if I am converting and it's lateral. Now, I think there are two different things you're talking about. Leave of absence, if that period of leave of absence, let me domesticate it. In the University of Jos, it's not counted, whether for notional or for anything. You have enjoyed it now. You can't benefit twice. If you go on leave of absence, you don't enjoy notional promotion. Otherwise, the other people that have been working will now begin to feel like the story of the prodigal son. So there's no notional consideration for anyone that embarks on leave of absence. Okay. Have I answered your question? I shouldn't go further. We can talk. We will talk. Now we can discuss further. Let me quickly say something here. The position of senior deputy registrar is the fight initially was for those that have served as registrars and are back. If you have served as registrar, will you come back and become a deputy registrar? So it was because we couldn't get the directorate system. So when this came up, it was adopted, it was accepted. They don't want to hear us being called directors. How can a non-academic staff become a director? And I bet you can become a senior deputy registrar. Now, if registrars have served out their period and returned, we will consider them. That leave of absence, for that period that they were away, they were still carrying out administrative functions. They were still registrars. Coming back, it's more or less downgrading you. So they don't want, the idea behind senior deputy registrar is to be able to give them that promotion on level 15. So there will be parity with where you're coming from. Even though you may not get the fringe benefits, the consolidated salary you enjoy, but at least you're still on level 15.
Please let us give our registrar a round of applause. We want to thank you for allowing us to tap into your vast knowledge on establishment matters, and I hope we've all learned one or two things. Even if we have not learned anything, I saw a lot of women clapping when they talked about maternity, about this. The 4 months is not, but the funny thing is that some of you who had no business clapping were clapping. We are watching you. You have been going on maternity. You still want to add more. I'm not going to call anybody's name, but you know yourselves. Some are this side and some are this side. But I want to thank you very much. Please, let us stand up, stretch our legs a little while the registrar makes her way to her seat. It's not easy to stand for so long, and it's also not good to sit for so long. You can stretch, please, stretch. Those of you who have not stretched in a long while. We want to use this opportunity to invite our next resource person. He will be taking the topic feedback as a management tool for improving performance. Mr. Daniel Thomas Arin is a principal assistant registrar with the staff training unit of the registry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary General. You have to be courageous enough to want to mount the stage immediately after the registrar. If I had my way, I would have negotiated with her to come first. Now that you have raised the bar, I'm struggling to reach that height. We're taking feedback as a management tool for improving performance. Very senior administrators, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We like to begin with a case study here. John, a recent graduate from college, joined the analytical team of Google remotely in January 2022. His supervisor, Mr. Tom, trained him over the first few weeks and assigned him to a project. After the completion of the project, Tom came across some errors, but did not highlight it as he wanted to take it up with John during the yearly performance. Does that appear to be what is obtainable in our system? You want to wait until the end of the year when appraisals are being done to give feedback. In December 2022, Mr. Tom highlighted the issue to John. He was surprised at the same time deviant. Was this avoidable? We will say yes, absolutely. A timely manner would have helped John to understand his mistakes in time and take corrective actions immediately. One time I was in the office and a colleague got a feedback and
She walked into my office and you said, this is not her. Somebody had told an officer close to her that she's a snob. It was a feedback. As negative as that looks, it was a feedback. And she said, this is not her. Now we are looking at performance feedback specifically. We are not looking at any other feedback outside your performance. We said it's a structured process of providing employee with constructive information about their job performance, highlighting strength, identifying their job performance, highlighting strength, identifying areas for improvement, and setting clear expectations. It's very important that as we sit with subordinates, we set our expectation very clearly. The next slide is not showing. Blue or Isaac. Expectations. Yes. The next point I want to take is, why do we need feedback? Now, even though the slide is not up, I'll try to explain a model I have chosen to explain why we need feedback. It is the Johari window. Some of us who studied psychology, we understand perfectly what the Johari window is. You have an open area. Everybody has an open area. That area is the area that is known to you and to people who are observing. How much of yourself do you know? That is the question. What tendencies do you have? Each time you get feedback, how do you react? Do you know yourself well enough? Like my colleague who met me and said, well, that feedback wasn't her. So the Johari window tells you that you have an open area. And what we're trying to do in giving feedback is to expand this open area, the area that you know about yourself and others can see and tell that this is who you are. Do you have self-awareness? Do you know your tendencies? Are you easily provoked? Are you open to change? You should be able to tell. There's a blind area here. This is one area that is known to others but not known to you. That's why you need feedback. Everybody has this aspect. There are blind spots. You are not able to see yourself. So what anybody giving you feedback is trying to do is to expand the open area. That self that you do not know about yourself is the area we're trying to give you feedback on. You may decide to behave in a way, because the human resource says there's no personality that is false or bad. Personalities are generally preferences. People decide to behave in one way or the other. It's a choice. If you take a personality test, you identify that the duration period is just 3 years. As an MSc student, I remember I had to take a personality test. The personality test is nothing but a questionnaire that is administered. You and other 4 persons who know you very well are issued that questionnaire. You will define who you are, then you get 4 different people who know you very well. They will also fill. Then averages are taken at the end of the day to see whether you know yourself. At the end of the analysis for the questionnaire, you go in and you sit with a coach, and he or she tells you, do you realize there's a gap? When we did that as MSc students, it was a surprise to a lot of people. They realized that the gap between who they say they are and who other people think they are is different.
I can't
you discover
get
that there is a gap.
Except when we stop the stream.
And if there's a gap, your coach will let you know that you do not know yourself very well. So that's the point to start from. Sometimes you may just sit down and say, well, this is not for me. But originally, if you check with it, you realize that it is for you. There is also the hidden part that is known. It's not known to you and it's not known to others. There's the unknown part. Okay, sorry, the hidden part is known to you but not known to others. It is that which you decide to keep to yourself. So as you're looking at this now, by the personality test I made mention of, the NEO-PIR questionnaire, majorly on 5 factors. You are able to tell how you react, emotional reaction. Are you calm? Are you relaxed? Are you carefree, even tempered? Or are you apprehensive, worried, tense, quick to anger? If you are able to tell where you fall in as an individual, it will help whoever is giving you feedback because already you know your tendency. Social concerns. Are you socially confident? Are you self-assured? Or you are a shy, conscious person? Sensitivity to stress. Are you easily stressed? These are some features. Interpersonal pattern. Are you reserved? Do you like to distance yourself or you are friendly? Outgoing. Are you an introvert? Do you prefer privacy to this public show people do or display? Or you prefer company? Assertiveness. Are you assertive? There are people who pride themselves that they are very assertive. But the assertiveness may get you into trouble depending on how you use it. There has to be a balance. Now for some of us, when I took the personality test, there was one feature that was a red alarm for me. I had prided myself as someone who has a humane disposition to life. Now on a scale of 1 to 5, if you realize that you are already on 4 on humane disposition, there's a danger there. Tendency is that you are not able to discipline not just yourself, but others too. So very serious organizations will do personality tests before, in the recruitment process, before you are placed wherever you are going to eventually work. You know why that is done? It is to be able to see the tendency you have. If, for instance, you know, we often call Mr. Haggai disciplinary master. If someone with a very high humane disposition is placed in his shoe or in the office where he works, I'm almost sure that most of the disciplinary cases will not end up in council. He will find a way to manage the situation because you want to give it human face. So there's a need to know ourselves so that when we get feedback, we know that yes, this is coming because of our extremity. Feedback can be painful because managers are uncomfortable giving feedback, especially the negative one. Employees don't know how to receive feedback. Employees tend to have an inflated assessment of their own performance. So, as supervisor in your office, how comfortable are you to give feedback? Some of us don't like the difficult conversations. You don't like to approach people. That's why you have people talking behind others, because they are not comfortable giving feedback. It is very important as administrators to have this skill to be able to give feedback, whether negative or positive. But psychologists have advised us that majority should be positive, because the human mind has a tendency to dwell more on the negative than the positive. So maybe a way to balance it would be that you try to give positive feedback. Be consistent. If it is positive, you make it known. If it is negative, you make it known. Employees tend to have an inflected view. Now look at a research, a survey that was done in 2021 on millennium. 40 feedback makes them feel like they can't do anything. I'm wondering which group you belong to. 28% started looking for a job as soon as they got a very difficult feedback. 15% cried, and 15% felt they were cursed. They can't do anything right. What category of these people do you belong to? University here, I just decided to bring out some competencies. We are usually rated on our knowledge of the policies and procedures. What about our written and oral communication? You know, when I joined from where I was initially to establishment, I spent just 2-3 months in establishment. There was a skill I discovered. You know, there was this group work happening in the establishment. People don't just sit in their offices and treat files. I used to like that very well. Even when I left to staff training, you will find me bringing my file to establishment. Because whether you like it or not, there is interconnectivity. So by the time you are getting feedback, in fact, if you avail yourself of feedback, it's better than waiting to do the wrong thing and you get a negative feedback. 360 feedback, degree feedback. Here in the university, what we have is subordinate supervisor. Imagine that we decide to adopt the 360-degree feedback. Some of us at the faculty, imagine that students have to make input, on your annual appraisal form. How will you feel? Will it make the difference? What about subordinate? Imagine your appraisal form will be issued out to your subordinate to give feedback. I wonder if it will come back positive or negative. What about peers? I think we are more comfortable with that, your contemporaries. Some of us have had meetings. We've written minutes of meetings and we've taken them out to our contemporaries to look at. That way it will minimize the error before it gets to the superior. You know, it is closely perfect. Now, when you look at the 360, you discover that customers are even involved. In our own sense, I put students. You know, when you look at national cultures, I don't think this 360 might work in the university, for instance, because we're high on power distance. When you look at national culture, you know, this thing they say all animals are equal, or others are more equal. Some are more equal than others, sorry. What do we do to ensure that feedback are done properly? We need to train everybody giving feedback, especially the administrators. We need to assign or select. Don't single out anyone. How do you respond to feedback? How? For some, it's a wake-up call. For others, they just shut down. It depends on the category where you fall. Some people have cried home after a tough meeting. We had one at staff training just of recent. It was APR and PC meeting. Left, right, and center. At the end of that meeting, we were feeling bad. So when we eventually got to the registrar's office, that was 2 days after that, we were still feeling bad over that meeting. Then we did something I didn't know. My boss was there. And registrar said, well done. My boss quickly said, at least someone is telling us well done. That was after 2 days. Some feedback could be like that. Do you shut down or do you think it's a wake-up call? I think the first option should be it. In as much as I don't try to live my life to prove people wrong, I just want to do the right thing. I just want to do the right thing. What is a good feedback? A source of feedback that subordinates believe to be credible and knowledgeable about the feedback topic. Here in Unijos, we're fortunate that we have our superior right with us. We see them almost on a daily basis. Those who work in the bank and other organizations, you may have someone from the headquarters coming to give you feedback, maybe sales feedback at the end of the year. You're asking yourself, when they say you have done poorly, say, does this person know me very well? You have to, there's this feeling that people who don't know us very well shouldn't give us feedback. Like my colleague got one. High quality feedback delivered in a tactful manner. If you call a subordinate, for instance, and you say, you are careless. It's a feedback, isn't it? If you say you are careless, is it a feedback or not? It is. But what if I say, the work I gave to you, you didn't add the numbers? Or you left out this and that? Is that not a feedback?
It's a feedback.
Rather than say you are careless, I say you didn't put this and that. The attention is shifted from the individual to the subject matter. Feedback has to dwell more on the subject matter. And you have to deliver it tactfully. Both positive and negative feedback when it is warranted, but positive more than negative, like you said. Attempt by the source to remain available for feedback conversation on a regular basis. Don't just walk into your subordinate's office and say, you hardly get things done. You should be available for that conversation. You should be definite. So what is happening? I gave you this work, this and this were not done. Be available for that conversation. Sometimes you forward your minutes of meeting, and your head makes all the corrections. They should be available to explain to you, this and this you got right, and this you need to improve. Attempt by the source to remain available. Okay, we've taken it. Active attempt by the source to promote and encourage feedback seeking. Your door has to be open. Why is feedback so painful? We have a need to grow, but also we have a need to be accepted as we are. Some people just want to remain the way they are. Oh, this person hates me. Oh, that person doesn't like my face. That's why this feedback is coming. It could be painful, but take the lessons. It's very important. Feedback is a gift. It is. To have someone give you feedback. In other clients, people pay. They see coaches, they see consultants. If you are getting it free here, you take your minutes and somebody is able to vet for you. Take it. What are your triggers? The content. Is this you? Is this you in the mirror? when you have a feedback, look at it and say, is this me? How to be a better feedback recipient? Know your tendencies. Are you defensive? Do you cry? Do you criticize the method? Sometimes some people say, if only he or she had talked to me nicely, maybe I would have listened. In as much as I discourage, harassing people, you should be open. Disentangled who from what? If the advice is wise, it should not matter who delivers it. Sometimes we dwell so much on the person giving us feedback than even the subject itself. Why will this person say this about me? Why would they say this? Especially when it's coming from subordinates. You want to criticize. What does you need to be more assertive mean? Let's understand the message. Ask for it, don't wait for it. Much easier to digest leads to good conversation. Test it out. From this comment, you can test it out. Now, when people are not performing, it is very important, you as the person giving the feedback, to sit down and do this. What is happening? Does the person lack the ability to do the job? If the person lacks the ability to do the work, what do you do?
It's fine.
Training is very important. You recommend training. I'm glad the registrar is seated here. Each time people come into our office to pick flyers for conferences, I'm usually not comfortable. Well, for the admin cadre, it's fine. For other junior cadre, I think someone should guide them. When our appraiser comes at the end of the day, I wish that staff training gets the end result to be able to see where gaps are, so that we'll recommend trainings that basically fit into what people need. It is not just walking into staff training and you just pick a flyer and say, well, I'm attending this conference. There has to be a thorough work. If the person is lacking computer skills, for instance, and he or she is a clerical officer, if you know what the problem is, you should be able to recommend that this is what this person needs. Is it lack of motivation? So that you can apply the appropriate measures. You don't just say, okay, well, everybody is poor ability. No, you don't group them in one basket. Some need motivation. A staff is always taking permission to be away for one or two things. Jokingly, I told one of our friends, I said, each time I wake up in the morning, I'm always looking forward to his text asking for permission to be somewhere. The day it doesn't come, it's a surprise. Now, we need to know what the problem is. Is it problem with the equipment? If the person doesn't have the facility to work, how else do you want them to deliver? It's difficult to deliver when you don't have the equipment. So that will help us to be able to know what this is and to tell people if they are lacking in skills, they have to acquire the basic knowledge. Evaluating performance, be fair, consider positive as well as negative performance. When last did you tell the staff in your office, well done? Or you are just jotting down the things they are unable to do. State facts, not opinions. It's very important. As you give people feedback, you don't say, I think this is it. No. This day or that day you did this and you didn't get it. Be specific. Provide documentation when possible. As supervisors, we need a handbook. This is not going too far, because along the line we will see some of the errors we have with feedback. Sometimes it's recency error. There was one time I was somewhere out of this place. I hope they are not watching me at this particular time. It was time for appraisal, and I had some problems with my head. That overtook almost the entire year for me. You know, our promotion appraisal is after 3 years, right? So if I had worked 1, 2, 3, the third year you have to appraise me, and maybe something goes wrong, you capitalize on that recent event. It shouldn't be so. As supervisors, we should have a record of what people are doing, so that when it is time to appraise people, you will not be looking for recent events. You would have had 1 or 2 records to rely on. What happens if evaluations are not based on the same factors? When you look at our appraisal form, for instance, you see loyalty, you see reliability. Are they the same thing? No, they are not. Now there are ratings error we do regarding performance. The contrast effect. Sometimes when you are rating people, you decide to measure them with other people. You are trying to contrast whether this person is doing better than Mr. A. It's an error that we should try to avoid. I'll come back to this. What about the halo Hans effect? Similar to me error, fundamental attribute error, leniency error. We'll look at this in detail. Now the contrast effect. Rater perception are influenced by their perception of others in the organization. A subordinate performance may appear better or worse depending on the peers. Now look at this. Which red circle is bigger? Very easily you will think this is it. You will think this is bigger, the red here. You see, because you are comparing a staff with high performance people, you find that the staff is almost doing nothing. But if you put the same staff with average individuals, you will discover that he or she is performing. So this contrast we make. Why not rate people based on their performance? I think as time goes on, we'll talk with the establishment. Maybe we should get to a point where we have like 5-scale rating. Whether you are meeting target or expectation, you know, you are surpassing it, or you are just doing the average. There has to be a way to measure this. What about the halo or Hans effect? One person rates another person with several different dimensions and gives a similar rating for each dimension. I have had reasons to look at some of our appraisal forms. You see a supervisor assigning 4 on all the dimensions to a particular staff. It's an error. Are you saying that the person is on the same level when it comes to loyalty as the same thing as reliability?
Disloyalty and disloyalty.
What about efficient and effectiveness? Effectiveness is doing what you're supposed to do. Efficiency is using the minimal resources to achieve that. If a secretary in your office has to use 10 papers to produce 1 memo for you, do you say she's efficient? That's not correct. Effective, yes, she has been able to come up with the perfect memo at the end of the day. But efficient, no. Now we have to be deliberate about this. Similar to me biases. Sometimes we look at people who are similar to us and we easily rate them high. You know, if you've attended, maybe most of us have had to partake in interviews. Sometimes someone just walks in, beautiful, and you conclude in your mind, this person must be intelligent. There's that error because they look similar to you, either in appearance, in color, and what have you. And those who do not behave the way you want or the way you are, you see them as poor performance. Central tendency error, the rater lumps everyone together around the average or middle category. There are people who just feel, well, 3, 3, 3, 3 is okay for them. I want them to improve. That is not how to go. This gives the impression that there are no very poor, no very good, or very poor performance. You just lump everything in one place. Giving all employees a high rating is termed a leniency error. When you just say, well, let them go. Let them go. I don't want, their promotions to be affected. The thing about it is that we don't think that this appraisal that we do has effect until someone takes it to court. Over time you are promoting people with high grades, and you get to a point where the person has to leave and you say this person has been a poor performer. If they take it to court and they decide that you bring the file, you will regret the fact that you have had to do this. Some raters tend to give everyone a low rating, strictness. Let them know that I'm tough. That's not correct too. In both instances, the rater does not distinguish between high and low performance. Fundamental attribute: the tendency to attribute performance failings to factors under control of the individual and performance success to external causes. We have said before that when people are not performing, let's try and know why, so that we don't attribute it to something else. What about the recency error that I have talked about? The rater allows recent minor events to influence performance rating over earlier major events. Because you don't have documentation. When it is time for appraisal, you struggle. Oh, how do I rate this person? And let me just give this person this. Recent. Stereotyping. The rater may have a bias based on race, gender, age, disability status. If you are to rate a woman, a Nigerian woman for instance, you have here, it says, I'm a woman, so I must know how to cook. It's a stereotype. Some do not know how to cook. And for them, it's not a prerequisite for their existence. This prejudice and stereotype may affect the rating process. The rater assumes that people who are physically attractive are also superior performance, attractiveness. Minimizing intentional errors. Frame of reference, like we were saying. Have something in your diary to make reference to. Make sure you observe these people as they are walking. Sometimes my head will jokingly say she's on world rounds. She just comes around, to see. It makes a lot of sense when you know what people are doing. Make sure raters seek information from others and from ratees. Design the system effectively with employee involvement. Do not have the rater rate too many employees. When you rate too many employees, you lose the basis. Make sure that performance standards are clear. How do we deliver feedback? We have said detailed and specific. Some of these things look like repetition, but they are not. It's just a point of emphasis that you should be specific. Rating reaction to performance feedback is the biggest hazard. Most employees view their supervisor less favorably and feel less motivated after the appraisal. Remember actor-observer bias. These are some of the ways to deliver feedback. Providing effective feedback. Mention facts, give example, effect, this efficient. This is providing alternative, suggest an alternative approach to handle it. Focus of feedback. It should not be person focused, it should be performance focused. So long as what you do outside the workplace does not interrupt your work here, it is fine. Professionally, that's the way it should be, not personally. If after work you have extracurriculum activity and it doesn't interfere with your work, Somebody should not come to the office during appraisal and say, well, I used to see he or she somewhere. That makes he or she irresponsible. It shouldn't happen. Example of feedback, you are careless, I mentioned this. But look at a better way. I noticed that you did not have the numbers I asked for 2 days ago. That's a feedback. In your last presentation, several of the names were misspelled. That's a feedback. What if you are told somebody you are careless? You know? Delivering feedback, keep focus on performance, make sure employees are not surprised, be engaged in the interview. Now, like the appraiser, the yearly appraiser, there should be no surprises. The things you are putting down on people's appraisal form should be things you have informed them over time. Yeah. You shouldn't be that, okay, you have not said anything and it is appraisal time. You say, you are always not available. You know? It's very important how to handle disagreement. Please don't start the discussion with negative areas. Start with the positive. It is easier to handle. When you use examples, the person knows that you're stating the fact. But when you just say, this is it, and you cannot pinpoint 1 or 2 behaviors that is attached to that kind of result, then the person may struggle to take in it. State the rationale, give example, and then listen. Let's listen to people. Try to gain understanding, not agreement. Now I did some research, I'm just rounding up, because it is feedback as a tool for performance improvement, or improving performance, sorry. I had to look at these few studies. This one was done in 2021. If you look at it, you will see that manager emotion plays a very big role in whether people accept feedback or not. If you are someone who just, will meet a subordinate, even on the stairs, and you begin to talk, your emotions, this study revealed that it has negative impact on performance. Now, another study I looked at had to do with peer feedback. Now it is discovered that it has more impact when you meet your peers. Sometimes we're afraid or we're shy to meet superior. If you meet your peers, you are more comfortable. So why not get feedback on daily basis from them? Now, the last study I looked at is the impact of online feedback on learning outcomes. This is a robust database. How many schools were used? Institution 243. And you realize that it adds to the learning process. It was very, very helpful. Thank you for listening.
Okay. Ahome. Ahome.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas, for that wonderful, insightful presentation. I remember the time back when he used to keep this box of tissue in his office, so that when he gives you feedback and you need to cry, you just take one of these tissues and use. True story, I'm not making it up. Anyway, sir, we thank you for that presentation. And if there's anywhere you want to seek clarification on, make observation, ask questions, now is the time. Okay, sir.
Okay, Jacob.
Let me start on a very light note. This morning when we came in here, The registrar was still at the back. I didn't see her. She was on the call, so I was there. By the time she finished the call, she shouted, "Madugu, I'm not happy with Anupa." And I was watching because I was just coming from my office. I actually went. So I was a bit startled, but it put me in check. And what it confirmed to me was that people were really ready for this workshop. And it made me to also look at my lieutenant and begin to shout at them that we need to get things going. You see, that is one of the very, very useful things about feedback. I speak from the point of view of a linguist. We use language a lot, and how we use it to a large extent, it tells us the kind of feedback we should get. I kept on telling the training officer, and I also told the secretary that I'm very, very insistent that at the end of this workshop, not only all of you that are here physically, from our online participants, we want to get brutally honest feedback on this training. Because we have decided there's no going back. I know we had some issues today. We're going to keep moving like this until we get to the point where anywhere in the world you think of our workshops, you'll be proud that you did. Very, very important. As administrators, anytime I comment, I always like sharing personal experience to non-NUC. That was the first time I was going to the department you have. Okay? The first day I got to the office, somebody rushed to my car to collect 11 and a half years in the university. I've never had that experience. It was strange. And she was insistent, Oga, please bring your bag. You are Oga. Okay? So I refused. And I went to the office. So it kept on playing out like that. So after a while, Ajia noticed one of the, and then she called me and said, Mr. Madugu, I think you need to allow them to collect your bag. And I was like, why? She said, no, if you insist on not allowing them, it can also affect the kind of feedback you will get from them concerning the kind of person you are. I refused for a week or so, and it confirmed what she said. And I noticed gradually that my own subordinates began to take advantage. They felt I was a very soft, I was a very easy, So she now reminded me, didn't I tell you? That's feedback. And because I was able to get that, it began to influence the way I handle them. It made me conscious of the fact that, look, I am here, I have to separate the office from my person if I want to succeed. It's very, very important. And the second thing I also want to say that you mentioned is, it's on how you receive feedback. By nature, I'm a very sensitive person. If you tell me that this tie is not looking good on you, I may smile. But when I get to a corner, I'll feel bad. Yeah, that is how I am. But you see, from what he said, I'm beginning to learn that if you don't learn, there are times you have to develop thick skin. For those of us who work with your hand, and I think we have quite a handful here. You appreciate what I'm saying. He has made some of us cry. I won't mention him.
5%.
You take minutes to him, correcting it until you begin to notice that he has even started correcting what he corrected. So working with him, after a while, understanding the kind of person he is, I was able to flow with him. And I was able to it made me to get to the point where I was ready for anything that he throws at me. But initially, that wasn't how it was. And then finally, I also want to say this. That when you work with people, the day he was posted, somebody from where he was posted before called me, a woman, and she said, Madugu, you are in trouble. Do you know that if I had listened to her, I wouldn't have been able to get what I'm getting from that staff? Because I noticed that when it